Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker and members of the Assembly, House Bill 1005 is the Treasurer's budget. The executive budget called for an increase of 1 FTE and an increase in operating costs due to software upgrades in the tax distribution outstanding check system, or TDOC system. Committee enhancements include reclassification of an employee and additional funding for temporary salary needs. Additional funding was also added for continued development of the TDOC due to oil and gas distributions and other enhancements. Section 3 of the bill adds language to clarify that corrections of payments is made resulting from errors by the Treasurer, and the state is not responsible for correction of errors made by local subdivisions. Section 4, the Treasurer's salary is put in line with the Auditor and Lieutenant Governor. Since 2008, increases in the workload in the Treasurer's office include a 248% increase in general fund dollar management and a 236% increase in other managed funds. In 2005, the Treasurer's office managed 54 general fund CDs at $750 million, and today they're managing over 350 CDs at $2.8 billion. The legislature has also added 3 new distributions since 2008, which are much more complicated than in the past. An audit of the Treasurer's office found no significant deficiencies. So, Mr. Speaker, your Appropriations Committee gave House Bill 1005 a 17-4 due pass, and we ask the Assembly to concur.
Representative Nathy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the bill carry yield to a question?
Representative Guggisberg, would you yield to a question?
I will.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Guggisberg, I'm just curious on the salary of the Treasurer. We're looking at a $10,000 increase. My math's about 13–14% increase. Why is that when we're looking at state employees 4 or 5%? The governor was maybe 4 or 5% on his salary. Why the increase why such a large increase when we're looking at much smaller increases for our own employees?
Mr. Speaker and Representative Nathy, that's a good question. I did outline some of the increases in the workload in the Treasurer's office, and also that it brings them in line with the other, brings the Treasurer's salary in line with the other ones. But if somebody else has more to offer on that.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I mean, we're looking at a pretty large increase, and it's pretty hard to justify to our state employees if we're looking at 3 to 4% increase. I have a real issue with this. I understand, Representative Guggisberg, every agency is busy and workload's heavy, but I have a real issue with this. Thank you.
Representative Kempenick.
Well, Mr. Members of the Assembly, this was something that has been an ongoing, last biennium we actually raised most of the elected state officials up. This was something that has been a discussion point for over 2 years. It was committees, and it was mainly the Government Operations Committee's decision to bring this up. It's 5,000, a little over 5,000 per year is what it is, and it brings it up to the lowest elected official. Whether the committee or the Assembly wants to do this or not, I guess it's up to them, but it was a feeling of the committee that we bring this position up to the lowest elected officials' salary range. So that's why it's where it's at.
Representative Carlson.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the Assembly. It's very rare that I speak against a part of a budget, but I couldn't agree more with Representative Nathy. If you remember back if you were here 2 or 3 bienniums ago, we had a study in which we looked at all of the state elected officials, and we looked at averages around the country and around surrounding states, and we raised everybody's salary at that point in time, and pretty much all equally, to get them up to we thought was a more reasonable level, to make sure that, number one, they were being fairly compensated, but number two, that you'd get quality people to run for the offices. Well, now we're kind of breaking the mold here because someone felt that their salary was not in line with the other salaries. And when you run for a position and know what you're getting paid, it seems odd to me that we would go in right after that election and then want a big raise when you knew what you were going to get paid. I think it's a bad precedent to set. I understand that it's hard to kill a budget, But I just want you to know that this is not standard. And everybody's workload has increased. The Secretary of State, all of the offices that we have, the Attorney General, the law enforcement, everybody's workload has increased. And I just think it's wrong policy to pick one out and say, well, I can't be any less than anybody else, and use that as the rationale for your pay raise. Because that's not how we should do business here. So I'm not going to support the budget. I know it's hard to kill a budget. If we want to send it on, I guarantee you the Senate is going to have a good hard look at this. But when the policy bothers me more than anything, that we're doing something that I don't think is done the right way.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the House has before it for final consideration House Bill 1005. Clerk will open the key and you may record your vote. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Key will be closed and clerk will take the record. The final vote shows 33 yea, 59 nay, 2 absent, not voting. House Bill 1005 is declared failed.